The company that owns the chemical tank in Garden Grove recently settled an air quality safety violation and agreed to pay $900,000 in a fine.
It was the result of an inspection from several years ago, and more recent records suggest that GKN Aerospace was actually in compliance with local and federal environmental laws.
Our investigative reporter, Eric Leonard, joins us now live with more on why the company was fined in the first place. Eric.
Hi, Kathy and Jonathan. Well, this is a business that routinely deals with all sorts of toxic and hazardous chemicals as it manufactures airframe components, airplane canopies, windows, and other parts that have to hold up to extreme heat and extreme cold. So the company is heavily regulated by local, state, and federal agencies. Inspections there are the norm. The violations that were settled in the last year stem from an inspection back in 2020. So you're looking at the agreement between GKN Aerospace and the South Coast Air Quality Management District. It says that it violated environmental regulations. It says some of the chemicals that were being used in manufacturing went beyond what was in permits. It says GKN had allowed some other chemical emissions that exceeded what was okay under the law. And it also cited the company for failing to keep complete records and failing to get permits for some specific equipment or specific procedures. Now, according to the settlement, the company admitted no wrongdoing, but it also didn't dispute the violations. Then in early 2020, it agreed to pay $909,935.95 to the AQMD. More recent inspections we looked at found the company was in compliance with other regulations that were being looked at. Now, NBC4 Investigates searched through federal and local court records and violations data that are held by a variety of regulatory agencies, and we didn't see any other penalties or failed inspections. So GKN Aerospace has to regularly report its use and transportation of hazardous materials both to the state's Toxic Substances Agency, also the EPA. So the kinds of chemicals that were on this site and in this tank were well known to the agencies that are supposed to make sure they're operating safely. It's not clear if any of the violations that were noted 6 years ago had anything to do with the chemical that's at the center of the problem that developed in the last few days, but on our review of those documents, we don't see that particular chemical listed. Back to you guys in the studio.
Eric, as you mentioned, the AQMD as well as the EPA, they are both familiar with this company. Do we anticipate they may inspect it once again, once it is obviously safe to do so? Would they revisit GKN?
Yeah, absolutely, because anytime there's a major safety incident, it prompts a fresh review, especially, again, dealing with one of these companies that's so heavily regulated because of the danger of all of these substances. And in fact, both the SoCal AQMD, the company that reached that settlement with GKN some years ago, and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, they're already on site. They've had representatives there taking air samples for the last few days to make sure that as this process of containing this accident is being done, that nothing is being released into the atmosphere. And according to what they posted online earlier today, they have not detected anything being released into the air, let alone anything hazardous at this point. But beyond that, local experts say, yes, these agencies will be back inside this plant, making sure that all of the safety regulations are being followed, that all the things they inspect for are in order before any manufacturing is allowed to resume.
All right, Eric Leonard reporting. Thank you.